From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is your weekly podcast about ninjas. And with me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast, and his name is Sean. Sean, how are you doing today?
I got a question for you, John. We're coming to the end of Ninja November. What is your ninja name? Have you figured out your ninja name yet?
Yes.
All right. Moving right along. Care to share it with the rest of us?
I'm going to say edible THC.
Can you wait
Because
till I'm not taking a drink to say that?
You asked. So, I mean, that's been a theme for the month because, well, the first two of these movies needed some assistance, even though I think I was more confused from that. And the second two, they didn't need the assistance so much, but they weren't hurt by it. So,
All right.
no. What is your ninja name for Ninja November?
I don't know, pissing down leg or something. I'm not really quite sure what it would be, but that's fair
It's
enough.
more accurate for the beer, I guess.
We'll take it.
Yeah. What have you been watching this week? What have you been up to? What have you been consuming?
I want to switch it up. I want to hear what you've been consuming, what you've been watching. Why don't you start off? Why don't you tell us? We never let you talk first. So you talk first.
Yeah.
You tell us.
You know, ladies are supposed to go first. That's
Oh,
why I
shit.
don't usually talk first.
Damn,
So.
burn. Take me to the burn unit. Where's the hospital?
What did I watch this week? So I haven't watched a ton. It's only been a couple days since we talked last. Most of this week, I've kind of been in a shit mood half the week, so I've been kind of digging into a lot of more music than I have been than I have been like movies and stuff. I got deep on like B-sides from old NoFX albums, which is fine. I've been listening to the new Slackers single a lot. It's only 2 songs. Slackers are a ska band from New York, I want to say, and they do a lot more mellow ska, but this new single is 2 like heavy dub influence ska songs, and they just sound really good, and I can play them at work, so I've been playing them a lot. Coworkers are probably annoyed with me. And then still diving into the Codependence album pretty heavily, which we've talked about that ad nauseum. The only movie I watched this week, though, I, like I said, kind of needed a pick-me-up, so yesterday I watched Pool Party Massacre, which is available on Tubi and probably other places. It's exactly what it sounds like. It is a movie about a pool party with several attractive women, and someone is making sure they're no longer attractive. It's very much so like in the spirit of a B movie. It's got all practical effects, and I don't think that they had the money for a computer to do computer effects, which is great.
For a computer.
Yeah, I'm sure they edited on something. It's one of those movies you watch and you're like, I appreciate that this isn't all that great because it's making it more fun. It's kind of, it's funny, especially at the end, is pretty humorous. It's colorful, and when you throw a bunch of like attractive women in a pool party, that's not really something to complain about, to say the least.
Well, and sometimes that makes it more fun.
Right.
You know, you realize when you see how low budget something is, you can sometimes realize how much fun it's supposed to be. You know, these movies are supposed to be about having fun.
And yeah, and that's exactly what this movie is. And that one is, I want to say the guy who directed it is Drew Maverick. I want to pull it up now so I don't misquote it. Sorry, Drew Marvick is the director. He's also in the movie. But if you watched Murder Size, which I've talked about quite a bit, he's in that movie. He's in a couple of the AMP movies. So he's one of those dudes that you look at on camera and he looks like a real gnarly guy. He's got the big biker beard and tattoos and stuff, but you kind of get the impression based off every character that he's played in these movies that he's just a fucking goofball. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Kind of hope it is, but it's a good add to this kind of movie because, you know, it's got people getting, well, murdered and finds a way to make it goofy and silly. Yeah.
What's more fun than getting murdered, you know?
You know, some days, I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much all I really watched this week. Like I said, we've it's only been a couple days since we talked last. I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch stuff. And yeah, sometimes you just kind of got to take a break from staring at a TV and pop on headphones and listen to some music or whatever you want to do. So, you?
Yeah, I saw that Helmet has a new single out, and I didn't get a chance to listen to it. It just popped up this morning on Apple Music. You know, you get pop-ups on your phone or notifications or whatever. I haven't listened to that. I really haven't listened to anything really worth note, but For me, I
didn't know they were still recording. I knew they popped up on tours here and there, but I didn't know that Helmet was still a recording band.
They must be doing something for a tour. They must be releasing something like an album or an EP or something for a tour to kind of support that. I saw them a couple years ago. They're still really good live.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I want to say I saw them open for the Melvins and Tomahawk or something like that a few years back. I don't know if you're familiar with those bands or not.
I know the Melvins.
Yeah, so the Melvins were the headliner, and they're the Melvins. They're pretty good. Tomahawk is one of Mike Patton's like 400 bands that he's in, and I'm a very big Mike Patton fan just because when it's rare that you can find a guy with that kind of vocal talent that actually pays off on it. It can do it in so many like random, like crazy different ways. I mean, this guy does everything from opera to straight up like just screaming for like an entire album. So it's cool to see his range. Tomahawk they came around at a time between like Faith No More albums. I love Faith No More. They're one of those weird, like super 90s sounding bands, but like in a good way. So Tomahawk kind of scratched that itch for me really well. And yeah, Helmet opened for him, which again, very 90s sounding band in a lot of ways.
They have a definite 90s kind of metal. I don't know, not really metal, but sludgy
rock or whatever.
I don't know exactly what you would call that.
It's that weird, like probably 15-year period between like 1988 to like 1990 or 2003-ish, where everything was just alternative.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I always hated
like I always metal, maybe. That's a good
just
classification.
What the fuck is that?
It's alternative.
Right. Anyway.
So for a pick-me-up on a contrast to what you were talking about, right before we started, I was watching a movie called Testament. It was from 1983, and for some reason, I get kicks from watching early 80s dramas about nuclear holocaust, like Threads, like The Day After. I don't know what it is. Something just kind of, I want to watch these things. This one I had never heard of. It came up in some random article about some new movie that was coming out, which I cannot remember the name for the life of me. But this one has William Devane, which I don't know if you know William Devane, Kevin Costner, probably heard of him, Rebecca De Mornay, Lucas Haas is in the movie as a real small kid. He's probably, I don't know, maybe 5 max in the movie. And it's about
47.
Yeah. So for you, about a 47-year-old. It has, it's basically about this family that lives in San Francisco or outside of San Francisco. And William Devane is the dad. He goes off to work one day, and in the middle of the day before he's on his way home, you just see like they're watching TV at home, and the news or the show they're watching is interrupted by the news, and they say they lost the New York feed, and this bright light flashes on the screen, and that's the extent. No big special effects, no decay porn or whatever you want to call it, like nothing like really that bad in the way that it looks, but slowly, spoilers for this 40-year-old movie, every member of this family and like people in the neighborhood and everything start dying off from this radiation or whatever. They don't really even cover it. It's just when someone dies, they'll show this kind of 8mm flickering film to show the person as they were, and then they're like wrapped in a sheet and getting buried or something. So it was really interesting. Those movies really put things into perspective, but at the same time, the 80s time period was such a Cold War, like nuclear war. I don't know. People had tunnel vision on nuclear war.
The headspace.
Yeah. Everybody just kind of thought nuclear war is always around the corner. I don't know about you, but we did like, not necessarily duck and cover, but we did drills where we'd get under the desks and put your head between your knees and all that stuff.
We had a fallout shelter in the basement of my elementary school.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we didn't have anything like that. Fancy. I live by the airport. You would think you would want to have a fallout shelter in case an airplane like crashed on your school. No, nothing.
Do you remember when there used to be this total local talk here, so sorry for anyone who's not in the Detroit, Michigan area.
Radio for 2.
Yeah. Do you remember when there used to be a Ford plant near Livonia?
Yeah. Yes.
It was like, I want to say Middle Belt and Plymouth, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
We were about 2 mials from that. So that's probably why.
The whole Richie Rich over here. Fancy
No,
schmancy.
I don't think it was that.
Didn't get a lot of chance to watch anything that. I watched the regulars, Amazing Race, Special Forces, all that kind of crap that you'd normally watch. I'm sure I watched something else. I watched a lot of 5-second, or not 5-second, but 30-second reels on Netflix as you pause on the show like we talked about last week. So
I really enjoyed your 42nd Street guy rant about wanting to win the Powerball and buy like a porn,
fund a big porn convention.
Yeah, right. I thought that was pretty good. So.
Yeah, I sent, just for everybody listening, I sent John a link to the video for 42nd Street Pete, and he talks about, amongst other things, about this thing. If he were to win the Powerball, he would fund the world's biggest triple X convention, and he would have everything where all the classic people would come in and they would sign things for free, and you get your picture taken for free with them because he'd pay them well, because it was like $1 billion jackpot.
He bitches about celebrities charging for autographs for about 3 minutes of this 10-minute video. It's
right. He's like, I never did that. I'd never do that. I don't know how much of a celebrity you are, but okay, that's cool. Like, I appreciate that. It's very great, right. Very gracious of you.
I'm sure someone recognizes him, but it's like you. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, to go down the rabbit hole on 42nd Street Pete, he says in that video that he was supposed to go to a convention this year and it got canceled. And he's on rough times. I know that he's trying to publish his own magazine about Grindhouse and stuff. And I guess Grindhouse has been, the term Grindhouse has started to be like co-opted by hardcore porn. I have not ever searched out Grindhouse pornography, but I don't know exactly what that is because I'm, old, but I'm just kind of curious.
I feel like that would not be something I'd want to watch.
No,
if it's
probably not.
Like Grindhouse film that I'm familiar with, but I guess you don't know till you try it. So
he's just saying like all these magazines that he's putting out are under Grindhouse, whatever. I don't know exactly what the magazine's called. And he's just having a hard time selling it, getting publishers to print it. And it's like, you think about places that do print on demand, like you would think they don't, unless it's illegal, like underage pornography or something, or anarchist cookbook kind of shit. They probably don't give a shit what they're printing as long as they get paid. That's what I would think. But he's very much like pushing this narrative of him not being able to publish his stuff because they don't want to do it because it's called Grindhouse, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, okay. So you kind of explained why they're not doing it, but I've heard, and this is true with like record pressing and shit like that from what I've heard, that because there's so few people that are doing that now, like making actual print or actual pressing of records or physical media of any kind, that, for lack of better wording, the line to get into these places to have that type of media made is just so fucking long that unless you either pay out the nose for it or you're Britney Spears or something.
Yeah, unless it's in demand, they're not gonna give you any kind of, they're not gonna do you any favors. Yeah.
Right. You're just back of the fucking line. Yeah.
And the other thing that he complains about, and again, Radio for Two.
Half this episode.
Right.
We're going to bump the episode up to Radio for 3 by the halfway point.
Yes, but, at least. Maybe Radio for 4 if we're lucky. He's pushing this thing like, I'm doing this YouTube channel for free. I mean, the guy's like, I think he said he's in his 70s, mid to late 70s.
I would guess at least 60s.
And he says, I'm doing this YouTube channel for free. I got 1,500 subscribers. You'd think somebody would buy one of these magazines. And I'm thinking to myself, we talk about my YouTube channel at the end of these things. My channel's, 2,200, not a whole lot. I can barely get 100 people to watch one of my videos, let alone click a thumbs up or leave a comment. So when I was doing them on the regular. So that doesn't surprise me that out of 1,500 people, you can't get one person to buy a $20 magazine or whatever it is that he's charging.
Yeah.
Just saying. But that's all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay. Yeah, I don't got anything else to add. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a listener-suggested movie. This is actually a movie that has been suggested by several people, but we'll get into that more after the break.
With the holidays right around the corner, you may be in need of some holiday party space. Batch Brewing Company, located in the Corktown neighborhood of Detroit, has space for parties of all sizes. From family-style meals to full-on catering, Batch Brewing Company has you covered. For details and pricing, contact Batch Brewing Company by emailing events@batchbrewingcompany.com.
The movie this week is definitely not the sequel to the movie Ninja 3. This movie is its own thing. It is Three Ninjas. That wasn't planned out. I just realized that in the course of conversation. But we start each and every movie with a third-party review. And this week, we're starting this conversation with a third-party review from Scott over the You Run podcast. Scott is also the gentleman that most recently has requested this movie. I gotta say, every time that we've asked you guys what ninja movies you like, love, or have a guilty pleasure for, soft spot for. This movie's come up every time, so Scott's not the only person that's requested this, but he's getting credit and or blame for it because of it. So thank you, Scott. This movie, Scott says in his review, thank you for covering the greatest ninja movie. Three Ninjas defined my childhood, and Tum Tum is my movie soulmate. From the Dollar Tree Mr. Miyagi through the wooden acting and ludicrous plot, the movie brings high kicks and nostalgic feelings that's like getting a hug from an old school pal. Also, the martial arts in this movie are actually top tier. This is a movie that is best enjoyed as the start of a Three Ninja movie marathon. They get so much cheesier and cheesier. Anyway, I hope that you love this, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. We're going to go ahead and say that Scott gave this 3 stars out of 5. So,
that sounds like somebody's writing a postcard to their kid or something like, hope you enjoy San Francisco, or, writing home with a postcard, whatever. All right, so on IMDb, we read the storyline and the plot, depending on which one's more interesting. To be perfectly honest, I didn't read these ahead of time, so I don't really have an opinion, but I'm going to read them both, because the first one, the plot is very short. It says, each year, 3 brothers visit their grandfather for the summer. He is highly skilled in ninjutsu, and for years, he has trained the boys in his technique. That's pretty short, so we're going to move on to the storyline, and it pretty much says the same thing. Each year, 3 brothers, Samuel, Jeffrey, and Michael Douglas. I didn't know that the Michael was Michael Douglas, but okay, visit their grandfather, Mori Tanaka. Yeah,
the
Michael
falling
Douglas.
down guy?
Yes, defense is the grandfather.
Yes.
Mori Tanaka for the summer. Mori is highly skilled in ninjutsu, and for years he's trained the boys in his techniques. That's what the other thing said. After an organized crime ring proves to be too much for the FBI, it's time for the 3 ninja brothers. Using their martial artistry, they team up to battle the crime ring and outwit some very persistent kidnappers. And that storyline is provided by Anthony Pereira, hypersonic91 at yahoo.com. Thank you, Anthony.
We actually do have responses to our question of the week, so I'm glad we're both off to reading things so well in this episode. So I want to start on this movie. I want to say one thing that I really like about this movie is, and this is kind of a reoccurring theme on the show, is you don't see movies that are made like this anymore. This is very much so a movie that is a movie made for kids. It is not a movie, though, when I say that, like when you watch a movie like just pick your Disney movie now, I don't care which one, they all have these not necessarily like political undertones, but this like social commentary undertone, this big moral that's not like out front in the story or anything like that. This movie is a kid's movie about kids beating up dumb bad guys. That's what this movie is. And that's actually kind of refreshing to see for a kid's movie, because at some point it's actually okay for kids to just be kids and not have to think about all the bullshit that we have to think about as adults.
So I agree with what you said. I want to get into my impressions of this movie, or my pre-impressions. When this movie came out, it came out in 1992, I believe. So I would have been 15 years old. And when
about the same age as Tum Tum.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I felt like it was a little bit after the whole Ninja Mania, because all the movies that we've talked about so far for Ninja November have been basically mid 80s. Like I think Jim Cotta was 85, 84, 85. And then we had the other two were right around the same time, all about 84, 85, 86. So in my eyes, it had already passed. That whole kind of trend had already passed. And I think I viewed this movie going in. This sounds bad, but I looked at the movie with a little bit more disdain than anything else. I mean, because for me, the marketing of this movie makes it look very much for kids. And let's face it, who else would the movie be targeted towards? This is very much a kid-friendly movie. And at 15, like that kind of marketing just does not work for you. You know what I'm saying? You think little kids are all shitheads, and you probably think teenagers are shitheads at that age. I still do. But yeah, for me at the time,
edgelord like horror movies at that point, you're like, if this doesn't have boobs, I don't need this.
Yes, exactly. If this doesn't have Art the Clown, no thanks.
Oh God, 15-year-old edgelord Sean scares me.
That wasn't me. That's just a 15-year-old edgelord.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really look at much of the marketing on this. I only saw the posters, which I kind of feel like the posters or the like art, box art, whatever for this, it feels very like Blockbuster Video. That's how it looks to me. And that's actually a selling point. Like I enjoy that.
Well, I'm just saying when I was 15, I remember when this came out and I was like, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with this. It was probably like 4 years too late for me.
I remember when this came out, and I want to say this is around the time like Power Rangers was kind of getting going too, and I was like not really into that either. I wasn't 15. I was obviously I'm younger than you.
No.
Clearly, old man.
Rub it in. Fuck off. Get off my lawn.
Shit on all over the place tonight. I wasn't quite at 15 like edgelord status yet, but I was at the point where I was like thinking I didn't need kids movies for sure. I do remember seeing this as a adolescent, probably at some point, but it didn't really stick with me. Like I don't have the nostalgia attachment to it. That said, I can see where it comes from. I can see why people do have that, because there's a lot of this, and I thought I read somewhere or heard somewhere that it was actually advertised as Home Alone with ninjas, and it kind of plays that way in a lot of sense. Like it's got stupid ass criminals that get the shit beat out of them by kids, which isn't all that different from Home Alone.
Yeah.
If you are a kid in the 90s and you haven't graduated into, I don't know, Jim Carrey movies, dick and fart jokes, and like whatever horror movies were out at the time, you know, whatever it is that your next step was in your film journey, I could see how this would be kind of a bridging movie. It's not like super kid movie, and by that I mean like it's not so young that like you're gonna give this to a 4-year-old or something like that. But if you're probably an 8 to 12-year-old and you have, you know, parents that don't want you to watch anything it's cartoony in a lot of ways, and that kind of makes it okay for kids that are younger and not quite ready for mature content, I guess.
Watching this movie, I did not expect it to be as much of, as you said, like the Home Alone. And that's, I took, take notes and stuff. And that's exactly what I wrote. This is like an action movie and a karate kind of, a kid's action movie, for lack of a better term, mixed with Home Alone. There's this huge segment in the middle of the movie where these stoner, I don't know, surfer kind of guys come and try to kidnap the three brothers. And
by the way, those three are the best part of this fucking movie.
Yeah, it adds to a lot.
Especially when they kick the fucking door open and it just bounces off the dresser or whatever and slams them right in the face. Fucking chef's kiss.
Yeah, a lot of slapstick Home Alone kind of stuff. I mean, the whole kind of breaking in the house, but there's this whole section. It's a good probably 20 minutes in the middle of the movie that are these three guys that are trying to kidnap the kids. And they lock him in a room. The one kid changes his outfit so it's all white. And I like that his grandfather gives him this mask that was passed down to him. So it's got to be like 50 years old or whatever. And the kid just takes it and spray paints it white, and he flips his costume inside out. Now he's white in this white room that his mom's trying to renovate or whatever. And he kicks these guys' asses in this room. It's like, oh, that's great. You desecrated this ancient, well, quote unquote, ancient artifact, family heirloom, so you could beat these dudes up. But it definitely has that Home Alone feel right in the middle of the movie. So, I mean, Home Alone was what, like 1990 or something like that? So it definitely...
It was 91. So it's right in this era. It's before this.
Yes, for sure. I think it was like 89, 90, 91. One of those in that range.
If only I had this internet
thing. This internet machine. But it has that total feel. You can tell they're totally aping that whole Home Alone thing, which is fine.
1990.
It works. Okay. So, and it works out. You don't see very many action movies, martial arts movies that are geared towards kids, and this one totally is. And that's what kind of makes it, like you said, a little bit refreshing, because it's not just this kiddie thing. I think it's hilarious that all the ninja movies that we've talked about so far, the three that we've talked about so far, all have a lot of killing. Like a lot of people die.
Oh, yeah.
This movie, the ninjas get kicked, they get knocked out, or whatever it is that happens to them. I can count 1, maybe 2 times where someone gets hit with a real weapon, quote unquote. And it happens to be the grandfather throws a knife and it sticks somebody in the chest. And to cover up that it's probably a fatal blow, they just play like a Looney Tunes sound effect or something over it. It's
right.
Like, minimizes it. Like, that guy's probably dead, but whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. And that's, again, this is all something that kind of works you can't look at this movie and expect Ninja 3, for better or worse. This doesn't again, we just talked about that last week. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, or if you're like, what the fuck is Ninja 3? I want 3 ninjas. Fair. But go back last week if you haven't heard that. And, you can compare notes if you have to. But I mean, everything in this, like this movie it is true to the ninja formula. I think I've said this on every movie. Like this movie is a vessel for like karate scene to karate scene. Each movie or each segment of the movie is just how do we get to another ninja scene with the occasional like basketball 2-on-2 game that is horribly shot in the middle of it. And
White men can't jump for kids.
yeah, except they also don't show the kids ever shoot the basketball. They just show them like walking around and like doing crowd work or something.
Showing their feet as they're dribbling between their legs, but they don't ever show the kid. They show the kids shoot some shots.
All of a sudden, the kid's got like a size 14 shoe, and they're like, man, he's really good at basketball.
Man, how'd that kid jump so high?
I think they do slam dunk at one point, too.
They do. There is a slam dunk.
Of course, you have to.
You have to. There's no 3-point line. I mean, what else are you going to
do? Okay. Basically, we didn't get into what the premise of this movie is. So what this movie is about, aside from what we've already said, there's basically these 3 kids that they have terrible parents that just kick them to the curb and say, go hang out with grandpa for a while all summer. Don't come back. I'm busy doing cop stuff and
other
renovating
mom stuff.
Yeah.
Grandpa, by the way, Maury, which I didn't see the name. I just saw Maury and I'm like, that guy doesn't look like a Maury is Victor Wong. So he was in Tremors. We talked about Tremors. He was in Golden Child. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's almost like
he's a character actor.
Yeah, he's like the Asian character actor that you see in a lot of stuff. There's like 3 of them. That's basically every Asian guy in any movie that calls for an Asian guy. Victor Wong's probably one of those 3 guys.
It's kind of a sad way to put it, but yeah. But you're not wrong.
Hey, back in the old days, they didn't look at Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Joel Grey, I think, plays the Asian guy. He's like, that's not an Asian guy.
Well, they have that Bond movie where they dress him Sean Connery up as an Asian guy for like half the movie, and that's the most believable Asian man on the planet. Is Sean Connery.
Everybody.
Yeah, with his Scottish accent,
right?
So, anyway, I digress. So
I'll have the Szechuan, please. That's my Sean Connery impersonation.
We need to do a shot-for-shot remake of Thunderball where you just dub everything as Sean Connery.
Please no.
Asian.
For my sake, please no.
Okay, so anyway, these 3 kids, they get thrown to the curb and Grandpa goes and picks them up and Grandpa decides that they need to learn how to beat the shit out of people, essentially. So they spend all summer screaming hi-ya, eating shitty food, and, fighting with Grandpa, which actually doesn't sound terrible. Like, if I was a kid, I'd probably be all about that. No issue there. Eventually, some random ninjas just show up as you do and decide to pick a fight with these kids. And Looney Tunes start and they, kick them in the dick and they do all their general thing. And that's where we get introduced the big bad, which is basically some dude in a ponytail. Very typical early 90s bad guy. Slick back hair, ponytail, suit. He's a bad guy.
Schneider.
Is that what his name? I don't even remember
Snyder.
his name.
What's the guy's name in Cobra Kai with the ponytail? Terry. Regardless, he's very reminiscent of that character. But that guy, Rand Kingsley, plays Snyder. I looked at his IMDb earlier. He's been in 2 movies. 3 Ninjas was his first one in 1992, and The Gardener in 1998. He plays male patron. This is his biggest role, and he's not that bad.
Male patron. It's a hell of a character right there.
Yeah, he's actually pretty decent as a bad guy.
I mean, he's fine. He works in this movie just fine. So like,
he fits right in.
So anyway, kids go back to mom and dad. Mom and dad don't give a shit that the kids are there. They immediately leave and stick them with some like sort of Mrs. Doubtfire / she kind of looks like. Have you seen Microwave Massacre?
No.
Okay, so Radio for One now. She looks like the head in Microwave Massacre once it gets cut off and gets microwaved. That's kind of what this lady looks like. Anyway,
it's an older lady with glasses and curlers in her hair, just for reference.
Right. Mom and dad are out going to bone in a hotel room because they haven't been alone in 4 hours or something like that.
Since the kids came home.
Right. Wherever the fuck they're going. And as you mentioned, these somewhere between like Pauly Shore and Wayne's World type stoner dudes.
Yeah,
they're a little bit of Hesher.
Spicoli to 11.
Yeah.
Dude, check out these kids, bruh. I don't think they say bruh.
You're hitting one of my points. They say dude.
Yes.
So the 2 things I wish I had in this movie, and again, if someone has this, please send it to me.
I do.
Send it to us.
I do.
Oh, you do have?
I do.
You know what I'm going to say?
I do.
Okay. I really wanted a word count for every time that the word dude and every time that the word hi-ya was said in this movie. Because these guys, these stoner, whatever they are, dudes, I think one of them, like the one blonde guy, I think his entire vocabulary is dude and awesome. I think that's all he says in the whole fucking movie.
Dude, awesome.
And it's kind of one of those things like these three guys, they're so fucking stupid. That's all they say, that it's funny. Then it gets annoying. And then it becomes funny again because it's still going on.
The Ouroboros
like it's one of those
of
ongoing jokes.
Awesomeness.
These three like absolute fucking morons get tasked with kidnapping the three kids because apparently the crime lord's assistant is their uncle, or the main guy's uncle. Is this before or after they try to buy the nuclear Nerf gun? When he's at like
warhead?
Yeah, it looks like a Nerf
after,
warhead.
For sure. Yeah, because the dad is a undercover FBI agent. He drives the limo to the place to meet Snyder, who somehow doesn't recognize him, and the guy is dressed up like a sheik or whatever. This white guy is dressed up as a sheik. And he's trying to buy these I don't know if they're nuclear or whatever, but they're definitely warheads, and he's trying to buy them. And there's this big chase ensues, and that's when you find out the dad has had this hard-on for arresting Snyder for the last however long.
Do you remember that Nerf football that used to have the tail at the end of it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what this warhead looks like.
But it's made of metal. I mean, it's not a Nerf football. So that begs the question, do you have a guess as to the count of dudes? We'll do dudes first because I'll give you a hint. It's the lower of the two.
Oh, I know, because they don't go through the whole movie. I'm going to say 86.
Oh, you're very close. I won't tell you quite yet, but what do you think the hi-ya count is?
407.
No, you're way over. You're almost double. So there are 203 hi-yas in this movie, and
you feel every fucking one of them.
You do. After a while, you're like, oh my God, and I feel like, I don't know, it's like ebbing through me.
Like nothing. After a while, you want nothing more than like Yokozuna to show up and just punch these kids in the face.
To splash them all.
To stop saying hi-ya.
Lay them all out and splash them.
Right.
And dudes, there are 79 dudes in the movie.
Okay. I went over on both.
You were close on dudes, though. I got to give you credit.
All right. And again, you feel every one of them. The difference is these goober stoner guys are so dumb that, like I said, it literally, it stops being funny and comes back to being funny again. Like,
yes,
that's how bad this is. But good bad. It's just that right kind of. It's like blue cheese. It's like, it's bad, but it's also really good.
It's just mold, but it tastes so good in combination of other things. You're not going to eat it by itself.
Well, not as a dressing, but blue cheese by itself, crumble form, you can. Anyway, I digress. For some reason, these three idiot stoner guys. I skipped a major part here. The bad guy decides he needs to kidnap the three kids because apparently he's not going to be able to like do whatever his bullshit is. I only remember what the point of the warhead is other than him trying to buy it and it not working.
He's trying to sell it and he gets busted. So the whole thing is like to get back at the dad and the grandfather because they're in cahoots. I mean, obviously they're related, but by marriage. They want to kidnap the kids so they have a bargaining chip to get whatever it is that they want to get.
Like you mentioned, you get this 20-minute like interlude of Home Alone style shenanigans with these three morons, complete with like diarrhea jokes, the most like insane amount of X-Lax that I've ever seen people like try to chug. I think you might actually die from that if you try to drink that much.
Can I interject here as an old motherfucker who recently had a colonoscopy? It doesn't work like that. You don't drink it and
I know it doesn't.
5 minutes later you're shitting your guts out, because that would be great. That's like a 20-hour. That's exaggeration. That's like a 12-hour thing. You're shitting for like 12 hours with all that stuff. So this is like a turnaround time of about maybe max 5 minutes movie time, where they drink this. The kids pour this big milk of magnesium, whatever it is.
It's like X-Lax times 12
times 100, and they pour it in this Coke. And the guys are, I don't know, they're getting beat up or whatever, and they're thirsty, so they got a drink, and they're passing the drink back and forth and guzzle this, I don't know, 40 ounce
spilling as much
Coke.
of it as they drink.
And that just makes them have to shit. So that's what takes them away from the kids, and they get a little break, and they're just having to beat up one guy. There's so much like choking, people on the verge of death, guillotine, almost guillotining these people. It's like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on in this movie? This is for kids.
But like you said, like you add some silly sound effects. You're right. Like from a logical adult brain, you're like, this is criminal. Like these people, like that's how you would look at that. But the way that it's played, it's very much so like cartoon violence. It is not it is not like watching, Ninja 3 where they would have,
Busting
been on the
through
toilet, chain their
tombstones.
brains out and
Yeah,
then like pull
busting
their
toilets.
intestines out or something. Yeah, it's not that kind of movie, for better or worse. So eventually, the three morons are moderately disposed of, but then kind of looks like Odd Job, the big like
Oh, it's
tank
Professor
top.
Tenora
Yeah.
Tanaka. Do you know where the last time we saw him was?
Not off the top of my head. Was he in Cobra?
He was no. Toru Tanaka was in The Perfect Weapon. That's the last time we saw him.
Okay.
He looked like shit in that movie. He could barely walk. He can barely walk in this movie. And there's a scene where he gets like kind of beat up by the kids and he falls onto a wrestling mat style thing, like a workout mat. I'm surprised they didn't have a stunt double. That's how bad how bad of shape he looks. He looks like a stunt double had to take the fall for him, just falling straight back on his back.
He does kind of walk like he has a stick straight up his ass to kind of move him around.
Like he has a whole leg brace or something on. He's just shifting around. That's how he's moving. They never show his legs when he walks. It's just like stomach up.
I think the most movement they show is when, we're jumping ahead, but when they get to the final boss fight or whatever, or like he's like the sub boss, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when he falls.
But right before that, he basically does the like hand thing where he's like, come on, little shits. And they all take turns and, use their brother as a battering ram, which would surely create some kind of spinal damage. But,
Again, speaking from experience, yes.
I didn't know you used your head as a battering ram.
Well, no, I use my back as a fucking
Were you
mat.
reenacting that scene from Biodome where he was trying to be a Sherman tank?
No, we were reenacting WrestleMania.
We're pulling all the pop culture references in this fucking episode.
So the smorgasbord.
Yeah. Well, that's what kids' movies do. Eventually, these kids end up they're on like a boat or something, right?
Yeah, they get kidnapped and put on a boat. And Grandpa, again, Victor Wong is the grandpa. He shows up in this outfit that looks like, I don't know, it's made out of somebody's bed sheets or something. Like they got the 1,000 thread count. They're like black, but kind of bluish, and they're reflective, and it kind of hangs over his face like a raincoat or something. It's very ill-fitting. He looks like you went to Spirit Halloween and got the ninja costume, basically.
I think they make it very intentionally baggy because there's a lot of scenes where I'm like, I don't think that's still Grandpa.
Oh, man, the stunt double for Victor Wong is working overtime. They probably have 2 or 3.
Oh, for sure.
Because this motherfucker he's doing flips. He's like doing all this stuff. And it looks great. Like the person they have like the shitty sideburns that look like his sideburns. There's a scene where they're fighting early in the movie with these random ninja guys who aren't really ninjas. They're just white guys in ninja costumes. The purple legging striped ninja is what I call them. And they got the bald spot. It looks accurate to Victor Wong's bald spot. I mean, it's great. It's the whatever they put on the person who was the stunt guys, because it was probably multiple dudes. Like at some point they're wearing just a pillow, like they're doing the Santa Claus pillow and the costume thing to make them look heavy like Victor Wong is. It's really good. I mean, it's really well done, all things considered, because they show this person, they have to represent a person who is obviously not able to do all these things, but doing flips and doing all these different things and doing kicks and punches and swinging swords and all this other shit. And it looks very convincing if you're not like peeping it to make sure, oh, is that Vic? No, that's not Vic. No, that's him. Oh, no, stunt guy. I mean, it's like really convincing.
In fairness, the stunt guys throughout the movie, not just for Grandpa, but for everyone, they earn their paycheck on this movie.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I wanted to say there's a lot of scenes where the kids are fighting adults, and that's a delicate thing. I mean, I don't know 1992 if it was so delicate, but
now it is.
There's a lot of scenes where it's like there are adults punching at kids and they're not hitting them, and I'm even surprised at the little kid if he didn't if he didn't hit some of the actual adults. But it's a really stark contrast to when the kids fight other kids, which happens near the end of the movie, which I'm not going to spoil for this movie, but they fight other kids and the action is really kind of slowed down. Like the moves and stuff that they do is very telegraphed. It's very like Hollywood fighting kind of stuff, but with the adults, it's fast and furious. It's very kind of off the rails crazy.
That's where I was going. Aside from the stunt doubles that are in this that do a great job, the choreography in this movie up until that last fight that you're talking about, I don't want to say it's the same as like some of the other stuff we watch, because it's not. It's a kid's movie still, but it's well executed. You really don't have, if you're going to come to this movie and try to bitch about it looking like a karate movie or whatever, you really don't have a leg to stand on. This movie does execute that about as well as you could expect for what I'm sure is a PG movie, if not PG-13. But
I think it's definitely PG in the PG
yeah, it's
realm.
PG.
And working with actors that are at the high end, max 13.
Right.
At the low end, like maybe 7.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they do a really great job. And I can't believe I'm saying that. You know, the 15-year-old
Yeah, I actually found myself surprised by that too. Like watching this, I was like, you know, I kind of want someone to punch this kid in the face, but at the same time, they're doing a really good job of making this look the way that I would expect this to look if this was going to be Ninja 3 as opposed to 3 Ninjas or whatever. Of course, after we get the sub boss, then Snyder or whatever comes out in his pajamas and decides to have the final boss fight. Grandpa shows back up and straight up murders a dude, as we mentioned. And this is still a kid's movie. Like, you can kind of... it's not like the bad guy's gonna win. I feel like that's not even a spoiler for this type of movie, but for what the movie is, it's a satisfying, like, final kind of like showdown between good and bad. There's no real problem there. It's not really our thing to go down and break the storyline to the point where you can't enjoy this movie still, but I don't know. Is there any big points that I'm missing that we feel like we need to kind of cover?
No, I mean, I was going to say that I felt like at the end, the way that the fight kind of goes, you're almost, because I know there are sequels to this movie, I think. That's probably...
I think there's 3 or 4.
At least, yeah. Like I know Hulk Hogan's in one of them.
Why didn't we watch that one?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Like, we got to watch that one, but that gets the lowest rating, so that might be the best one to watch. But the way I'm thinking of it, like...
Oh my God, have you seen the poster for this?
Yes, I have.
Thing?
I remember the movie coming out. I'm thinking of it like, because I know there are sequels, maybe something does happen to the grandpa, you know, like maybe he does get taken out. Maybe he is a casualty of this movie and the kids have to do something to relieve the pressure or do something to make sure this guy's caught. I wasn't really sure because the way, like the movie, I think it's like an hour 34 or something, hour 35, something like that. And when all the grandpa fight and everything kind of resolves itself, by the time there's 5 or 10 minutes left in the movie before they go to credits. And I was thinking to myself, admittedly, I did look at the time and I was like, what are they going to do to finish this out? And obviously there's like a bit of a, I don't know.
The bullies come back. And
the bullies come back.
Essentially.
But I didn't realize that was going to happen. I'm like, oh, maybe something happens to grandpa and he gets taken care of and the kids have to do something.
What a plot twist if the bullies murdered their grandpa.
That would have
twist.
Either one would have been good. And that one of the bullies,
3 Ninjas kick back, the revenge.
One of the bullies ends up being the bad guy in the next movie. That would have been quite a thing.
He's just a toy for Hulk Hogan.
I think that's part 3 or 4. I don't remember.
It is 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
Mega Mountain. I knew it's something that had to do with a mountain.
They don't really name these, like, I guess if they added another number, that might be confusing for some reason. There's 3 Ninjas Kickback, 3 Ninjas Knuckle up, and 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain, which is the Hulk Hogan one.
3 Ninjas 2,
like
3 Ninja 3, 3 Ninjas 4. What?
Right. And then there's also Little Ninjas, which I don't think it's the same thing. So, any major points that we want to hit on before we start kind of breaking down thoughts on this one?
I love the stunt double that fills in for Victor Wong. Like, I love how there are different ones. I love how there's a scene where he's in his ninja garb and he's doing the thing and it's very clearly not him. I think it's like a weapon kata or something that he's doing. I love stuff like that. I love when you can see someone that's a stunt performer that's not the
for sure,
not the actual actor or not even close. There's no doubt in your mind that this is not the person it's supposed to be. There's a lot of that in this movie. So especially Victor Wong. So if you're like me and I don't know, nuts, and you love to see stunt performers performing as somebody who doesn't look anything like the person they're supposed to represent, you'll have a field day with this movie.
Do you want to start us off with hot dogs? Yeah,
I can do that. I also wanted to mention this movie I think it was like the highest earning movie, not highest box office, but like...
Out of the way, Titanic, you son of a bitch.
No, I mean like from how much it cost to how much they earned. This movie, the estimated budget was
margin or whatever.
Yeah. 2.5 million estimated budget. It made $29 million worldwide. That's like Blair Witch shit. Well, Blair Witch I think it made like 100 times what it was budgeted for, but I wanted to kind of get that out of the way. So getting into hot dogs for me, like I mentioned earlier, when this movie came out, I think it would be fair to say that I despised this movie. I think that's pretty fair as a 15-year-old. But John, you know what's really great about me, because I love to toot my own horn? I'm able to admit when I'm wrong. It's not the deepest story, but it's a lot better put together than a movie we talked about earlier in Ninja Movie March, American Ninja. I think this has a better storyline than that. It's
certainly a more followable storyline.
It had all the ninjas you could ever ask for, even if they're not real ninjas. I mean, ninjas with assault rifles, that doesn't equal ninja in my book. And I could really see 10-year-old me loving the shit out of this movie. It's got a lot of action. It's pretty kid friendly. Like, there's nothing really offensive that happens in the movie. It's not how I would have chosen Ninja Movie November to end it, but it's a fun movie nonetheless. For me, I got to give Three Ninjas 6.5 penis haircuts out of 11 hot dogs. I'm a big fan of the penis head haircut.
I don't know how I'm going to top that. So for me, this movie, I'm pretty much kind of step with you on this one. Like, this movie is a movie that I don't really have nostalgia for, but I can absolutely see and get where the nostalgia comes from. I understand why so many people have brought this up as one that they love for, whatever reason. And I gotta actually thank Scott for recommending this, even though I'm dreading the next movie that he has already asked us to review officially. Reading between the lines, if you don't know, they just announced today that A24, our favorite film company, is making a biopic on Elon Musk, and it's been requested that we review it. So I don't think we'll be as nice. I don't think we'll be nearly as nice to that as we are with this one. But
we talk about the movie, John. We don't talk about the subject. We talk about the movie.
Fuck that. Anyway, no, this movie is fun. This movie is it's Looney Toony, it's slapsticky, it's well executed. The characters are all, for the most part, likable, if not a little annoying because of some of the dialogue choices. I really found myself enjoying the Pauly Shore ripoff guys by the end of of their time on screen, and I was disappointed that they so abruptly disappear from the movie. But for what this movie is, it kind of checks all the boxes on what a movie like this needs to be. It's the kind of movie that if I had a 10-year-old that wanted to watch a movie on repeat, you could do a hell of a lot worse than having to sit through this 400 times because that's the only thing that they want to watch. Yeah, I'd give this about 5.5 Pepto-Bismol Coca-Colas out of 10 Hiya hot dogs. It's fun. It's a good one. And yeah, again, it subverted my expectations. I expected to be thoroughly miserable for an hour and a half watching this, and I can't say that I was.
I thought this would be abysmal. I was not looking forward to watching this at all. I was like, this is going to be awful. Why did we say we would watch this? But it turned out being actually pretty good. I mean, if you look at it through the lens of a younger person, I'm going to say a 10-year-old, 12-year-old maybe. Like you said, checks all the boxes. As an adult,
though, if you don't go into this expecting Ninja 3, basically.
High watermark of Ninja Movie November.
I'm sorry, I had a lot of fun with that movie. That movie's great.
It's amazing in its own way.
But if you're not expecting that kind, if you go into it just expecting something like that, you're going to be disappointed because it's not that. And there's absolutely no fucking reason that you should look at this movie and think that's what you're going to get. But if you go into this movie just kind of knowing what it is, it excels at being this kind of movie. It excels at being a kid's movie that's fun for kids. And like I said to start this conversation, you don't see movies like this anymore where they just let kids have a fun movie where it's just kind of, whether it's dumb shit or silly shit or whatever, where it's just letting kids have something fun that's made for kids. You don't get that anymore. It's got to be like a kid's movie, but it's got to have a ton of adult jokes packed in there that are disguised as jokes for kids that they don't get, or it's got to have social undertones that kids don't even fucking understand, but parents do, and then they write on message boards about it. Dumb shit like that.
Oil spills are killing the penguins.
Right.
Kids don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, I don't have kids, but if I did, having watched this now, if they were in the right age group, I would totally be you should watch this because it's a kid's movie. I get it.
Having kids that age, I feel kind of sad because it's almost like they're too old to watch a movie like this. I don't know if they would have been into it.
Yeah.
They're just not into action-y kind of movies, which I've failed as a father. But, this would be a perfect movie. I think they're just maybe a year or two out of the range of watching something like this because it's just fun. We have we didn't talk about it, but the tin can telephone that goes between the houses. I don't know how that works. They have that.
Good luck explaining that to your fucking kids now.
I want to live in these kids' room. Like they got the trampoline that's like your feet can barely fit on in their room.
They got Mario 3.
They do. Very true. They got all this shit. They got the red light.
Easily the best Mario game.
Nobody in the household knows that this red light comes on when mom's coming up the stairs. I mean, they got it all. Why would they move away?
They probably wouldn't. Except for when they kick them out to go live with grandpa for 3 months at a time.
Mom and dad got to get out of this house. Got to make
a fourth ninja.
Exactly.
Can't fight Hulk Hogan with just 3 of you. He's the fucking champion. He fought Zeus, for God's sake.
That's right.
All right. So our question of the week, since we're done talking about this movie for the moment, I'm sure we'll come back up. How did I word this? Question of the week was pretty simple. What was your favorite kids movie that you still enjoy as an adult? We got responses on I put this on Instagram, I put this on Threads, and I put this on Twitter, and we got responses on all of them. We'll start on Threads because that's what I have pulled up in front of me right now. This one, the same movie was mentioned by both Bearded Amoeba at Bearded Amoeba and at Louisa.77. Both of them said Goonies. I had a feeling this was going to be a movie that came up for sure because it's a classic movie. It's Spielberg. What's not to like about it, right?
Love Bearded Amoeba. That's a great name.
It is a great name. And he's got his avatar. He's got like one of those full ski masks on, and it's in black and white, but I hope there's gold teeth behind it because why wouldn't there be? On Instagram, where'd that go? On Instagram, we got a response from Horror Movie Maniacs, and they said, does Stand By Me count? I'm going to say yes because it's your choice, not my choice. And they said if not, then they would go with the Goonies. But God, it's been so long since I watched Stand By Me, but that's kind of a horror movie geared towards kids, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. It's got that kind of, it's like a coming of age story, but with a little bit of a horror element. I know that when they show the body, I think they show the body, don't they, in that movie?
Believe so.
I had to look
it's
away.
In like the sewer or something like that.
It's like on next to railroad tracks or something. That's a great movie.
It's got Joe's apartment in it.
Yeah. It's got the whole apartment?
Yes. All singing cockroaches and everything.
Jerry.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to head over to X/Twitter/ whatever the fuck this thing is now with A24's new subject matter. And we will start with Sean Benoit, who is Sean Benoit 9. He said Problem Child. God, I haven't seen that since I was a fucking problem child.
Problem Child's great. I got slagged on pretty hard, but
they made 2 of those, didn't they?
Yeah, they introduced
I don't
little
remember the
sister,
at all.
But it was from a marriage or something.
Jeremy Visser, who is J to the Vissy 87, said the Ernest films, which I really like the Halloween one, and Ernest Goes to Jail, so I can't really argue that. The 90s Addams Family movies, Good Burger, Homeward Bound, and Problem Child, and Dr. Dolittle. I saw about half of those. So I watched the Ernest movies, Addams Family. I don't remember the other ones. Well, we just talked about Problem Child. You?
I think Addams Family I watched, and I obviously know of all the other ones, but haven't watched them.
TV, or Ty the Retro Video Guy at Tyler Saban said, this is the only movie I watched back in theaters. I love this movie. I don't know what he's referring to. So he might be referring to movie 3 Ninjas because there was an image of that. Surprisingly, Scott over at the You Run podcast said, well, duh, and it's just referring to this. Our friends over at Dissect That Film said, any Pixar film, Home Alone 1 and 2, The Land Before Time, and The Nightmare Before Christmas. Home Alone 1 for me is absolutely in that ballpark. Like, that's honestly one of the better Christmas movies. Like, if you want one that's not involving actual murder, like just implied murder, I guess.
Near death experiences.
I absolutely agree with that. I think for me, Pixar started really coming out more when I wasn't a kid, or wasn't a young kid. So I can't really like claim it as like a childhood thing. Land Before Time, for whatever reason, scared the shit out of me as a kid. So really? I don't have the same nostalgia. Yeah, I don't really know.
Littlefoot?
No, it wasn't him. It was the Tyrannosaurus that freaked me out for some reason. And we've gone over my opinions on Tim Burton's and the likes, even though he didn't direct that. But all great choices. Weird Walter at Walrus, WALL, Russ 90 said The Goonies, because they never say die. And then Pearl Hissy Face X, she said 3 Ninjas is nice. It's a good one. Mine would be the awe-inspiring Macaulay Culkin movie starring Joe Pesci and not Joe Pesci, David Stern. A Home Alone, nothing beats booby traps and physically hurting the bad guys. Can't really complain about that.
Yeah, this and 3 Ninjas adopts a lot of that slapstick kind of humor. I mean, there's like almost a direct scene for scene kind of thing with the jelly beans and the ball bearings or whatever is that they do in Home Alone. So it's, that's great.
Sean, what's your pick for this? What is your movie that you from your childhood that you still enjoy as an adult?
That's so tough. There's a lot of great suggestions, and it's great to hear a lot of different names that we haven't heard before on these kind of question of the week things. Goonies for sure. I try to show my kids Goonies. They couldn't care less. Home Alone's one that stuck. I think that's like kind of transcendent. I feel like people at any age.
The holiday theme helps.
Yeah. My dad's like 85 and he laughs his ass off at Home Alone. I really like Labyrinth. I haven't seen it in a while and I need to see it again, but Labyrinth is a really cool movie. David Bowie does a great job, and Jennifer Connelly, you know, that kind of captures that kind of age range, and she has that kind of sense of wonder that age range would have. So it's tough. That's a tough question. We came up with a good one this week. I think I got to go with the audience, though. I think I got to go with Goonies. That still holds up really well, but I feel like kids of a younger age, it loses their attention because there's a lot of story going on and there's a lot of stuff that happens before they actually get to the point of it. But I know we tried to watch it and they were like, one of them, I think it was my older kid, she'll watch anything. And she was very much open to watching it. And I think everybody else was leaving and she was like, oh, okay, maybe later, Dad. And that just never happened. Actually,
all the ones that are suggesting here are great options. I do love Goonies too, like pretty much anyone in our age group. The ones that we did a whole episode on Monster Squad. I'm kind of surprised that didn't come up at all, which is another great, very kid-focused movie. The one that I would say is probably my favorite, though, would be Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, that's great.
I love that movie. It's another, again, Spielberg doing his best. The animation in that movie, like the way that, again, seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff with it's great, too, because that was so groundbreaking at the time, and now it's, everything. It's just mocap all the time. But that movie is so funny. It's so like raunchy. It's weird seeing those IPs kind of cross together at that time because you never saw Warner Brothers and Disney stuff like coexist at that point. You probably do now because Disney just owns everything.
Right.
That movie, I mean, it's got a little bit of everything. It's funny. It's got great actors in it. Bob Haskins and Christopher Lloyd are both on their A game in it. I love that movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's one of those, like when it was on, you just put the remote down and just stay on that because it's that great of a movie.
That's a great answer.
That'd be my pick. So yeah, I think that's all we got for the week. Do you got anything else we want to touch on before we start wrapping on this one?
No, I think we've drained it. We've drained the slide.
Right into the swamp. So we are going to return to the swamp then. We will be back next week. It is no longer Ninja November. We're going to roll right into Murder Christmas or whatever the fuck we're doing.
Murder Merry Christmas.
Yeah, something like that. In the meantime, we're going to ask that you follow us at Dewey Pod Monster on all the social networks. That's where you can keep up on whatever shows we got coming up, whatever episodes are dropping. Of course, if we're doing any other movie nights locally where we're going to be popping out and you can come hang out with us. Best place to find us is at Dewey Pod Monster on pretty much every fucking social platform out there. As mentioned, we want you to follow us on our YouTube channel as well. I think by the time this comes out, we'll have some more content up on there, but we're going to try to do more stuff with that also. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a end of the year recap and do a live stream and get some people involved with us. I don't know, something. But that's what we want you to do. And check out our site. It is at crap.town. We'd like for you to, if you want to go back and listen to our Monster Squad episode or listen to our Ninja 3 episode, if you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? That's where you can do it. Sean, what do you got going on?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want your answer to the question of the week read here, like I said earlier, it was really cool to hear a lot of kind of newcomers to the question of the week answers. You can find us on all the social media, like John said, at Dewey Pod Monster. If you want to follow any of my craft beer adventures in the state of Michigan, you can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com, or you can follow me on all the social media networks at Draft Therapy. Don't post too much, but try to do what I can.
That's all we can do in this life. That and ninja shit. So,
hiya.
Dude.
I was really hoping the dude count would be 69, but it wasn't. It was 79.
That would have been great.
That would have been real fun.
It's just a 69 plus 10, whatever.
Yes.
And like I said, we're back into the swamp. We'll see you guys later. Cheers. Dude, awesome.
You are my
All right.
All right.
All right.
All right. All right. Excellent. So we're off to a good start. So